Everyone in the kingdom whispered her name, but no one dared speak it aloud, for they said, when the night wind sighed through the palm trees, it carried her sorrow, and those foolish enough to pity her too deeply would dream of her tears, tears that burned cold as moonlight. They called her Amara, the forgotten princess. But once, oh once, she had been loved. Long ago, before the rains lost their rhythm, and before the kingdom's laughter turned hollow, the land of Nduka thrived like a living song. The markets shimmered with color, the red of palm oil, the yellow of groundnuts, the smoke of roasted maize curling through the air. Children chased each other through the courtyards while the old drummers sat by the baobab, humming songs older than memory. And inside the great palace of carved ivory pillars and patterned mats, a cry broke the stillness of midnight. A child had been born under a blood-red moon. The diviners gathered, faces painted white with ash, and they trembled as they cast their cowries upon the floor. The shells landed in a strange pattern, one never seen before. The eldest diviner whispered, "This child will bring light to the kingdom, but her light will burn those who forget her." Those words settled over the court like a mist. Some nodded in awe, others shivered, but King Okoro, proud and wise, smiled and said, "Then we shall never forget her." He named her Amara, grace. Her mother, Queen Ijoma, raised her gently like one tends a delicate flame. Every morning, Amara would sit on her mother's lap as the sun poured through the latticed windows, and the queen would braid her hair while humming soft songs of the river spirits. The little princess had eyes deep as dusk and a quietness that made even the palace guards lower their voices when she passed. She spoke little, but she watched everything: the flutter of birds at dawn, the laughter of servants, the silence of the moon. And when she smiled, the courtiers swore the very air brightened, but no one could have known that light would one day turn into shadow, because peace, my children, never lasts long in the houses of kings. A few years later, another cry filled the palace, louder this time, wilder, full of life. A second daughter was born. They named her Nnenna, the mother's child. From the moment she took her first steps, the palace changed its rhythm. The drummers played faster, the dancers twirled brighter, and laughter filled every corridor. Nnenna was bold and beautiful, like sunlight dancing on water. She would run barefoot through the throne room, climb the royal fig tree, and shout at the guards to chase her. King Okoro adored her. Queen Ijoma adored her. The people adored her. And slowly, without meaning to, they began to forget the quiet one, the one who watched, who listened, who painted in silence. The court poets now sang of Nnenna's laughter, not Amara's calm. The sculptors carved Nnenna's face on the palace gates, and when festivals came, the crowd chanted only one name. Amara would stand behind the curtains, watching her sister dance and smile faintly, though her heart ached like a bruised drum. Still, she never complained. Instead, she found refuge in the quiet places, the palace library, the garden by the koi pond, the roof where she could see the whole kingdom shimmer in gold dusk. She learned from the old griot who taught her forgotten songs and stories of spirits buried in time. She painted her dreams upon the walls, rivers that wept, faces half hidden by fog, suns that bled into night. "Why do you paint such sad things, my child?" the griot asked her once. She smiled softly and said, "Because sadness remembers what joy forgets." The griot looked at her long and said quietly, "A river that remembers too much will one day flood its own banks." But Amara only bowed her head, her hands still stained with blue and red. Outside, the world kept spinning, louder, brighter, busier, and Amara's quiet grace faded into the corners of memory. Soon, even her own name was missing from the songs of the market women. They sang instead, "Nnenna, child of laughter, bringer of rain, blessed be your beauty," again and again. Amara would walk among them in her plain white cloth, unrecognized. The people would smile politely, not knowing who she was. But what she didn't know was that the spirits had not forgotten her. No, they had been watching, and in their silent watch, they had begun to stir. One night, as the moon rose swollen and red once more, Amara dreamed of a river running backward, its waters dark as ink, its voice whispering her name. She woke in cold sweat, her heart pounding. The palace torches flickered, though there was no wind. Somewhere in the distance, a dog howled, then fell silent. The next morning, she told no one, but the feeling stayed that something unseen had turned its gaze toward her. And indeed, it had, for that was the night the kingdom's first omen appeared. The royal garden, lush with lilies, woke covered in ashes. Every flower wilted overnight, except for one. A single white bloom stood tall in the center, its petals stained faintly red. The priest declared it a warning. The queen wept, and the king called for the diviners once again, but none could read the sign. That was the beginning of her sorrow, and the first whisper of the legend that would one day make even the wind mourn her name. Because that night, though she could not yet see it, fate had already begun to carve her story into stone. No one expected what came after. The rain stopped. At first, the people thought it was just the season turning, the usual mischief of the harmattan winds. But days became weeks, and the sun began to bite. The rivers shrank into cracked scars across the earth. The air grew heavy, thick with dust and silence. Children coughed in their sleep. Even the royal wells, deep as the ancestors' bones, began to taste of rust and sand. The great kingdom of Nduka, once bursting with laughter, now echoed only with the dry rattle of despair. Every morning, King Okoro climbed the palace balcony to stare at the horizon, searching for clouds that never came. And every night, the drums of prayer pounded through the valley as the priests called to the gods for mercy. But the heavens stayed closed. Finally, in the third moon of drought, the priests of the mountain arrived, shrouded in dust, their faces marked with white clay, their staffs humming with cowrie charms. They bowed before the king and spoke in one voice. The gods are angry. Someone has broken the covenant of remembrance. A name once honored has been forgotten, and until that name is restored, the sky shall remain sealed. Their words fell like thunder through the court. The queen gasped. The courtiers exchanged fearful glances, and somewhere in the corner, a voice whispered, almost too softly to hear, "It is the elder daughter, the one even the bards no longer praise." That whisper spread like fire through dry grass. By sunset, every servant, every guard, every child in the market knew the tale. The forgotten one, they said, the princess who lost her name and cursed the kingdom with her silence. When Amara walked through the corridors, people turned away. The same courtiers who once knelt to her now pretended not to see her passing. The drummers stopped their songs when she entered the hall. Even the griot, her old teacher, lowered his head, guilt flickering in his eyes. In the courtyard, she overheard them murmuring, "It must be her. The spirits have marked her since birth, the blood moon child. The one the gods warned us about." Her heart trembled, but she said nothing. She only pressed her palm to her chest and whispered a prayer no one heard. But what she didn't know was that the decision had already been made. That night, the thunder rolled over the mountains, deep and low, like a drumbeat from another world. Palace lights flickered in the wind. Servants scurried through the corridors, whispering, crossing themselves, avoiding her gaze. And in her chamber, Amara sat by the window, staring at the sky. The air smelled of smoke and rain that never came. The paint on her fingers, remnants of her wall art, had faded into ghostly streaks. She could almost hear the river from her dream, whispering again, backward and dark. Then came a soft knock. She turned, and there stood her mother. Queen Ijioma's royal robes were gone. She was dressed in plain cloth, her eyes swollen from weeping. She shut the door quickly and hurried to Amara's side. "Child," she whispered, trembling, Listen to me carefully. The priests have spoken. They say only a sacrifice will open the heavens. Amara frowned, not yet understanding. A sacrifice? Her mother's voice cracked. They mean to offer you to the gods, to save the kingdom. The words struck Amara like a blade of ice. She rose slowly, her voice barely a breath. Me? But Mama, what have I done? Tears streamed down the queen's cheeks. Nothing, my daughter. You have done nothing but be forgotten. And in forgetting you, they have angered the ancestors. Now they believe only your return to them can bring rain again. Amara stared at her hands, so small, so pale under the moonlight. The same hands that once painted stories on the palace walls. But tell me, Mama, she whispered, her voice breaking, will the gods accept what the people have rejected? The queen's sob filled the silence. She reached to hold her daughter, but her hands trembled too much to touch her. Outside, the wind howled like a grieving woman, and then a heavy knock shook the door. The queen froze. The sound came again, louder this time. The guards' voices boomed from the corridor. By order of the king, the sacrifice must be prepared. The queen's lips trembled. They are here, she whispered. Amara closed her eyes and exhaled, calm as still water. Then let them come, she said softly. If my death will feed the earth, perhaps the rain will remember my name. The door burst open. The guards entered, their faces blank behind the shimmer of their helmets. They carried white cloth and chains of palm leaves, symbols of purification. The queen tried to speak, to beg, but her words broke into sobs. The guards bowed slightly to her and turned to the princess. Forgive us, my lady, one murmured, unable to meet her eyes. Amara simply nodded. There is nothing to forgive. As they wrapped the white cloth around her shoulders, thunder roared again. Closer now, echoing like a heartbeat through the mountains. Lightning flashed across the sky, illuminating her face, calm, resigned, radiant with something almost divine. But no one expected what came after, for when the storm passed and dawn rose over Nduka, the palace would never be the same again. The road to the mountain of Oji wound like a serpent through the land, dry, cracked, and colorless. The wind carried the smell of dust and burnt grass. Even the birds had stopped singing. All of Nduka seemed to hold its breath. The guards walked ahead, the spears trembling in their hands. Behind them, Amara moved slowly, wrapped in white cloth, the color of both purity and farewell. The fabric whispered against the stones as she walked, her bare feet leaving pale prints in the sand. All along the road, the villagers gathered in silence. No one spoke. Some crossed their chests, others lowered their eyes. An old woman whispered, the gods see everything, but do they still remember mercy? The drums began, deep, mournful, unhurried. Boom, boom, each strike echoed like a dying heartbeat. And so they climbed. At the mountain's summit stood the altar of stone, blackened by centuries of sacrifice. The sky above churned with bruised clouds. Thunder grumbled far away, the first sound of the heavens stirring after many moons of silence. The priests waited there, cloaked in palm leaves, their faces painted in red and ash. Their leader, an old man with blind eyes, lifted his staff and cried, "We call upon the spirits of the mountain. The covenant has been broken. Let this child's offering restore the balance of life." The others answered, their chants rising and falling like waves. "Allah, Chukwu, hear our plea. Let the blood of remembrance wash away our shame." The wind whipped through their robes. The scent of storm filled the air, sharp, metallic, like a taste of iron. Lightning flickered behind the clouds, flashing across Amara's face. She looked down at the valley. Her father's kingdom spread beneath her like a broken jewel. Fields turned to ash, rivers turned to dust, and somewhere far below, she imagined her mother kneeling in a prayer. A strange calm settled over her. She stepped forward, her voice clear and steady despite the roaring wind. "You call this a sacrifice," she said softly, "but it is not my life that offends the gods. It is your forgetting." The priests froze, their chants faltering. "Child," one warned, "do not speak against the ritual." But Amara only lifted her chin, her eyes bright with something fierce and ancient. Lightning cracked across the sky. The clouds split open. The storm finally answered. The priests stumbled back, shielding their faces from the light. Amara's voice rose through the thunder, not trembling, not afraid, defiant as a flame in the rain. If the gods have forgotten me, then let my soul remind them. Let my tears become the river that feeds those who abandon me. Her words echoed through the mountains, carried by the wind, by the storm, by the weeping sky itself. Then came a blinding flash, a sound like the heavens tearing apart, and the white-clad figure vanished. The storm broke. That night, the rain fell, as if the sky itself was grieving. It washed over the fields, the rooftops, the palace towers. The parched earth drank greedily. The people ran into the streets, laughing and crying, lifting their faces to the downpour. The drought was over. At dawn, the king and his guards climbed the mountain to give thanks. But at the altar, there was no body, no trace of blood or ashes, only a single white veil caught on a thorn bush, fluttering gently in the morning wind. The thorn tips shimmered with dew that looked too much like tears. The king fell to his knees. The queen wept until her voice broke. Even the priests were silent, their mouths dry with awe and shame. The storm had passed. The land was green again. But the princess, the child of grace, was gone. Yet the strangest part was what followed. For though Amara's body had vanished, her presence lingered, soft but certain, like the scent of rain long after the clouds had cleared. Fishermen swore they saw her reflection in the water, smiling faintly as the ripples touched their nets. At night, shepherds heard a voice humming above the riverbeds, a lullaby no one had taught their children. And in the palace garden, a white flower bloomed from the very spot where her footsteps had last touched the earth. It bloomed through drought and flood alike, and when the wind blew over it, some swore it whispered her name. The people began to speak again, this time with reverence, with tears. They said the gods had not taken her. They had made her eternal. But what no one expected was that the river itself would soon begin to rise, as if the heavens had given her sorrow a voice. And that was only the beginning of what Amara would become. The rains had returned. The kingdom of Nduka was alive again. The fields glistened with dew. The air smelled of fresh earth and mango blossoms. Children laughed once more in the courtyards, and the sound of pestles beating yam echoed through the hills. But not all laughter was pure, for though the land had healed, the people could not forget how it was healed. And at night, when the wind passed over the valley, they began to hear a song, soft, sorrowful, like a lullaby sung underwater. A woman's voice, gentle as rain, distant as a dream. Some said it came from the reeds near the river. Others swore it floated down from the mountains where the sacrifice had been made. But all who heard it felt the same thing, a tightening in the chest, as though their hearts remembered a name they had once tried to forget. Soon the people noticed something else. The crops closest to the riverbanks grew taller, greener, richer. Their leaves shimmered faintly under the moonlight, as if fed by something other than water. Fishermen who cast their nets there began returning with fish so fat and golden. The market women called them the river's blessings, but they never stayed long on the shore, because sometimes when the wind was still, they claimed they saw her reflection in the water, a face pale as moonlight, smiling softly, though the surface did not ripple. One fisherman, too proud to bow, threw a stone into the river and spat, "Spirits don't feed my children." The rain did. That's all. That very night, his canoe capsized in calm water, and he was never seen again. From that day, even the boldest men greeted the river before crossing. They poured a libation and whispered, "Daughter of grace, remember us kindly." And then came the queen, Queen Ijoma, hollow-eyed from grief, walked barefoot to the river one night, her royal cloth dragged in the mud. Behind her, 2 servants followed, carrying candles that flickered in the damp wind. When she reached the water's edge, she knelt and laid down white lilies, Amara's favorite. She built a small shrine there, with carved wood and a strip of silk for her daughter's veil. It became a place of remembrance, not worship, a quiet promise from a mother who could not stop mourning. Every new moon she returned, whispering softly into the dark, "Forgive us, child of grace. Forgive us, for we forgot." Some nights the water shimmered as she spoke, and the queen swore she heard her daughter's laughter, faint like a bird passing between worlds. But peace, my children, is a fragile thing. Even love can rot when envy takes root. In the palace, Princess Nnenna watched all this unfold. She saw the people who once cheered her name, now kneeling by her sister's shrine. She heard them sing songs of Amara, the river spirit, Amara, the blessed one, Amara, who feeds the land. And her heart, once full of light, darkened with jealousy. She could not understand why her sister, the quiet one, the forgotten one, now ruled the hearts of the people from beyond the grave. Every praise that once fed her pride now felt like poison on her tongue. At first, she tried to hide it. She smiled at the festivals, nodded when the priests offered prayers, but when she looked at her reflection in the palace mirror, she no longer saw herself, only the shadow of Amara, smiling faintly behind her shoulder. That was when she began to hear the whisper. It came not from the wind, not from her servants, but from inside her own heart. A whisper that said, "Destroy the shrine, end her memory, take back what was yours." And one night she listened. The moon hung low that evening, red as the one under which Amara was born. The air was thick, humming with unseen power. Even the frogs in the marshes were silent. Nnenna slipped out of the palace, dressed in black. Her golden anklets jingled softly as she walked, though she tried to move without sound. Each step toward the river seemed heavier than the last, as if the ground itself wanted to pull her back. But jealousy has no ears for warning. When she reached the riverbank, the shrine glowed faintly under the moonlight. The veil her mother had hung there fluttered gently, though there was no wind. Nnenna's face twisted. "You think you can haunt me, sister?" she hissed. "Even in death you steal my name, my songs, my people. No more." She reached out to tear the veil from its post, and the water stirred. First a ripple, then another. Then the river began to glow faintly blue, like breath beneath the surface. Nnenna froze. The air turned cold. Her golden anklets chimed once, a thin trembling sound, before a voice rose from the depths, soft, echoing, familiar. "Nnenna." She stumbled backward, eyes wide. "Who's there?" The voice sighed, heavy as grief. When the heart forgets love, it remembers sorrow. A cold wind swept through the reeds. The water surged upward like a living thing, wrapping around her feet, her waist, her hands, and before she could scream, the river swallowed her whole. The night fell silent again. The moon shone on the still surface, calm, unbroken, as though nothing had happened. At dawn, the villagers found a golden anklet glinting by the shore. Nothing else, no footprints, no struggle, only the faint hum of a song, Amara's lullaby, rippling softly through the morning mist. The queen came, her face pale as ashes. She fell to her knees and whispered, "Both my daughters, claimed by the same river." The people wept with her. From that day onward, they called the river Olu Amara, the river of remembrance. They said it remembers all things, love, envy, betrayal, forgiveness, and that if you stand beside it on a still night and call the name of someone you have wronged, the river will decide whether to bless you or take you. Even now, when the wind sighs through the valley, the elders tell their children, "Never mock the forgotten, nor envy the loved," for the river listens, and it remembers everything we try to bury. Years passed. The kingdom of Nduka changed, as all kingdoms do. Kings died, new ones rose. The palace that once rang with the laughter of two sisters grew silent, its walls covered in creeping vines. The drums that once called for sacrifice now called for festivals, and the people's fears faded into legend. But the river never forgot. They called it Olu Amara, the river of remembrance. It ran quiet through the valley, wide and silver beneath the moon, its banks alive with whispering reeds. and whenever the wind passed over its surface, it carried a faint melody, the same sorrowful lullaby that had haunted the nights long ago. Travelers began to come from far and near, from the deserts of the north, from the forests of the south, from kingdoms whose names were written in the smoke. They came not to seek gold, but forgiveness. They brought flowers, strings of beads, carved wooden dolls, and fragments of silver. Each visitor stood before the water and spoke softly the name of one they had wronged, one they had betrayed, or one they had simply forgotten. And the river listened. If their hearts were proud, the water grew still, so still that their reflection would fade, leaving only the empty sky. But if their hearts were sincere, trembling with remorse, the river shimmered, a faint glow spreading like dawn beneath the surface. Some said they saw a face there, calm, sorrowful, beautiful, smiling faintly before the ripples closed. And when they left, their burdens felt lighter, as if something unseen had taken their pain and folded it gently into the current. Soon the tale spread beyond Nduka. Merchants whispered it across their trade routes, griots sang it in distant villages, and mothers told it to their children by the fireside. Never let the heart that loves you fade from your memory, for even the forgotten remember, and the river never sleeps. And so the legend of Amara, a princess who became remembrance itself, passed from tongue to tongue, generation after generation. But some say her spirit still walks beside the river, not as a ghost, but as a guardian. They say when the moon turns red and the scent of rain drifts through the air, the reeds begin to rustle with a voice, soft, familiar, filled with both grief and grace. It is not a cry for vengeance. It is a sigh of longing, because in the end, it was not the gods who forgot her. It was her own people. And that, the elders say, is the greatest curse of all, to give love freely and be remembered only by your tears. Sometimes, when a traveler lingers too long by the riverbank, they claim they see her white veil gliding across the water, just beyond reach. Others say they feel a gentle hand on their shoulder, urging them to speak truth before the river decides. No one knows for certain, but one thing all agree on. When the night grows quiet and the wind hums through the valley, a melody rises from the depths, a song soft as forgiveness, a reminder that love once given never truly dies. The river remembers, the heart remembers, and even forgotten names find their way home. So, my children, when you next pass a river under the red moon, bow your head, whisper a name, and listen, for somewhere in the rustle of the reeds, the Princess of Remembrance still hums her song, a song for all who have loved and all who have been forgotten.